There she is. I should be able to just add you right on. There we go, little invite button. And let me know. Shalom, shalom.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That's my monitor. Hi.
Shalom. Perfect. It
Hi,
actually
Tawnie.
worked right away. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. I don't want to take up any time because, first of all, just a quick little backstory. I had the pleasure of doing some advocacy with this young woman, I shall say, because I was shocked to find out her age because she speaks so beautifully. She
Oh,
has
thank you.
such a way of getting out information, and also just it was beautiful to watch you interact with others and share your story. And so I was very honored that you share this very important day with you. And so I would love if you would give a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to share today.
Yeah, sure. So, of course, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. So my name is Shivika. I am a high schooler in the Bay Area, which is in California. Oh, thank you so much. So today is February 26, 2025. Exactly 2 years ago, on this day, my grandmother had a brain aneurysm rupture. And I'm pretty sure Miss Tawnie has talked about this already, but just as a reminder, a brain aneurysm is basically just a bulge in the blood vessels that are in your brain. And you don't really know it until it ruptures, or unless you get like a brain scan, a picture of your brain taken. So, yeah, so on this day, 2 years ago, my grandma had a brain aneurysm rupture or burst. We never knew that she had a brain aneurysm in the first place. And unfortunately, a week after this day, she passed away. She wasn't able to survive her brain aneurysm rupture because it destroyed 30% of like half of her brain, and the other half was already like pretty much gone.
My condolences.
So,
I know the
yeah.
doctors explained to me, they're like, it's like a bomb goes off in your brain. And when it hits certain parts of your brain, it does not matter if you get all the treatment. Sadly, things.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, unfortunately, things didn't work out, but I've kind of made it my mission to make sure, that people are aware of this disease or this condition, I guess, and try to make sure that what happened to my family doesn't happen to anybody else. Because so if I just give a little bit more background into my story. So my grandma was a really, really important part of my life ever since I was a baby. I think she was practically my everything. I used to worship her. She was such a sweet, kind person. And she wasn't just important to me, she was also important to everybody around her. We're from India, so over there is a big, in some places definitely, you have some people that can come to clean your home and do other work for you, especially if you're elderly and you can't really do that much yourself. So in India, a lot of people don't treat them as equal to them. They definitely they taunt them. Sometimes they can treat them very poorly. They can give them half-eaten food, which is very, very insulting to a person, obviously. But my grandmother was definitely very different. She used to make tea for the help that would come, and she used to give them books for their children to read and to study from. And she used to treat everybody so kindly, extremely lively, bright personality. She would just love talking to people. I think I kind of get that from her. I love talking to people too.
So she definitely passed that off to you, her kindness and ability to talk to people.
Yeah. And she would love talking to people. She loved making food for people. She was just a really, really sweet and kind person. And so yeah, she wasn't just a light of our lives. She was extremely important to everybody around her in the place she lived. And she passed away, I think, before she turned 63. So she was 62 years old when she passed away, so pretty young. And it was really, really sudden when she passed away. So and when I heard about this, oh my God, it's a little hard for me to say right now.
I'm
but
sure it's an emotional day.
It is an emotional day. And I think, so what happened was that I was at a Science Olympiad competition, and my mom got a call from her cousin in India saying that, hey, your mom has had a stroke. Now, at that point, we didn't know too much, and there weren't telling us that much either because everybody was in a rush and in a hurry. But what happened was, so then we went to India. I actually didn't know what was going on at all. So I didn't know until I got to our city, our home city in India, and my mom kind of broke the news to me very gently that what happened. And I was literally just in tears at the airport, just crying and crying, and it was just really shocking. But I still didn't understand the full thing of what actually happened, because to me, a stroke is just when there's not enough oxygen in your brain. I didn't know about an aneurysm, like that little bubble and it bursting and like a little bomb in your head. And later, so that entire week was super duper like traumatic for us. I mean, my grandpa was at the hospital until like 11 p.m. every night and just sitting on the floor outside the hospital, just waiting and everything. And I had to go and say my goodbyes because we didn't know if he would make it or not. And it was just really, really hard. And it was a big struggle. So for her, what happened was that, so on the day that her brain aneurysm ruptured, it was a normal day. And she went down for like a little event in her apartment complex. She came back up and then she ate some spicy food for dinner, asked my grandpa for like a little sweet that they offer to the gods. And then afterwards, she said that she was having the worst headache of her life, like a really, really, really bad headache. And because of that headache, so then my grandpa started, massaging her head, taking care of her. Then he asked, "Hey, are you okay?" And then she opened her eyes, and turns out her eyes had flipped backwards.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then afterwards, she started seizing and vomiting, and just the whole, she was just like seizing, vomiting, and she physically just wasn't present. So for me, this was kind of the day that I lost my grandmother, because afterwards I wasn't allowed to see her inside the ICU again. So, I'm telling everybody a couple of the symptoms, because strokes, you never know when they might happen. And especially with aneurysms, one of the biggest symptoms is that people feel like they're having the worst headache of their life. And it's sometimes called a thunderclap headache by a lot of physicians and doctors. So yeah, that's basically what happened to her. And so none of us knew she had a brain aneurysm. No one knew how long it was in the brain. A lot of surgeons refused to operate on her just because of the extent of the damage that had been done. Pretty much everyone had put their hands up. Through a familial connection, we got one doctor to try at least, because we wanted to at least see if we had that last hope. But even they operated once, but the pressure was so much that she would have passed around the table. So they tried to relieve the pressure, but eventually they weren't able to. Then I think a week later, her organs started failing and she passed away. Over that course of that week, she was in a coma and completely unresponsive to anything at all. And she just wasn't showing any signs of waking up. And I remember during that time, my mom and my grandpa, even after this shock, they had to have some really difficult decisions, like questioning whether they should take her off the ventilator. And that was I remember watching my grandpa. He was, of course, very upset when my mom asked this question, but it was something that we needed to consider, but it was just a really hard discussion to have. And I saw, my entire family just shook up, and really, really, everything was just a really, really hard time. And then, a week later, she passed away, and an even tougher time for us started, because grieving is just this one process that it never stops, honestly.
No,
I still miss her every day. Yeah. Sometimes I still wake up from a nap or from when I'm sleeping, I'm screaming her name. Still, it's still here. That person, their memory it doesn't leave you, and neither does that pain.
No.
And just dealing with that, especially for the first month, because my mom had to take care of some last rites and some legal stuff in India. So I was over here, and my grandpa and my mom were in India. So I was somewhat, not really alone, but of course I had my dad's wonderful support. But it was just a really, really hard. It gets easier, but it also doesn't at the same time. So it's just a lifelong impact. And I think losing a person that was so important to me, it felt like the world was just yanked from beneath my feet, and everything was just tumbled upside down. Because one minute she was wishing me good luck for my science competition, and the next she just wasn't there anymore. She had a stroke. And it's just something that has affected us so much.
It happens so
And
suddenly and affects the entire family. So like
yeah,
I'm
and
so
nobody, yeah, and literally everybody was so sad because we didn't know whether she was going to survive or not. And it was just such an uncertain thing. You couldn't tell, oh, now's the time to say goodbye.
no.
And even saying goodbye is such a hard thing. My mom was telling me that she had to tell her mother that, hey, if you want to go, it's okay. I'll take care of everybody here. Which for a daughter is probably, I can't even imagine saying that to anyone, let alone my own mother. God forbid if that ever happens. But just struggles like that are what made me kind of figure out that, this is something I don't want to happen to any family. And basically, after that, I am a big science person. The Sapodol is a science competition, right? So after that, I started doing research on brain aneurysms. I have written, yeah. So one of the things about brain aneurysms is that there are two main types of stroke. One is called ischemic stroke, where there's not enough oxygen to the brain and the person is probably going to like pass out, but then they're going to, of course, it can also have devastating effects, but they're more likely to recover. But in a hemorrhagic stroke, or the one where the little bulge in your brain ruptures or bursts, there's only like a 50% fatality rate. So imagine like flipping a coin and saying, oh, this person's going to pass away from that stroke. Or maybe not. It's literally just a 50% chance of them passing away. And more than like 70% of people can't return to the state that they were before the brain aneurysm. They're usually permanently disabled and or they pass away. Yeah. So to the people that survive, thank you so much, Ms. Tawnie, for like actually advocating for this. And I'm really, really happy that you're one of the survivors. I'm so glad to have met you and realize that I'm not alone in this. But yeah, stuff. So yeah, it's a really, really life-threatening, and especially for the people around the patient, life-changing condition. So I started doing some research based on, and I've written and published a paper actually on different ways that you can detect a brain aneurysm before it's too late. Because most times you got to take a picture of the brain using an MRI or a CT. That's super expensive, usually at a doctor's request, and you really can't tell if you have an aneurysm until it ruptures, until you start feeling symptoms, which is pretty late. So I started taking a look at things that you could probably get from your routine blood test, and that can possibly, you can be that can be tested at like, your regular health checkup. So those are just, that's what started my journey. And of course, that's my scientific side of things, but I definitely wanted to connect with people who had been through similar experiences. So I saw a volunteer opportunity with the Aneurysm and AVM Foundation, which is a beautiful, beautiful cause that I'd only volunteered once, but it was just possibly one of the best experiences I've had. And that's actually where I met Ms. Tawnie, and it was a really fun thing where we just talked to different people.
At the San Francisco Marathon too. What a different way to be able to talk to different people, and so many people who, athletes. And that's why it was wonderful having both of us there, because two sides to the story, exact flip of the coin. And that's why it is so important to get to the hospital, to know the warning signs, to not just say, oh, it's just a headache, I'll just go to bed, which is what I did, you guys. And the doctor, like, it is insane that you're alive. Like, not only did I do that once, but I did it for a whole week. Like, so we know I'm here to be. That's why I was like, please let me share your story. And the fact that you have put out some research, I would love to put those links and any other information, because information helps. But just the fact that you turned something so devastating into a chance to educate and empower other people is just commendable. Like, especially at such a young age. Like, that's why I could not believe, I go, wait, excuse me, you are how old? Because you speak so beautifully. I was like, I want to be you when I'm older. Like, I'm older than you, but I want to be able to talk like you, because
thank you. I appreciate that. Honestly, I owe where I am today to my grandmother, and I owe it to her to make sure that people know about this, because most people actually, we were speaking to them and they were just like, oh, that's a thing, that's a condition. But some people were like, oh yeah, this happened to my grandmother or my grandfather or my mom or my uncle or my sister. So to some people it's a completely foreign thing, which it was to me before this happened. But some people it's actually pretty relatable because it's not as rare as you would think. 1 in 50 people in the United States are just walking around with a brain aneurysm, not knowing that they have one.
Yeah.
So definitely, that is just some. That's just some of the stuff revolving around how I got into this, and yeah. So eventually, my oh my goodness. Forgive me. I'm
You're
out of
doing
lost for words.
amazing. No, I know we're all over the place. You're doing great.
Yeah, it's a really emotional day for me today.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, I just felt like I had to come and talk a little bit about my family's experience with brain aneurysms. And often, you know, people these days, they like throw around a bunch of stuff as a joke. And once I heard someone say, "Oh, I'm having an aneurysm just reading this," and I was like, "Oh my god, that's." I was like, "Okay, that's a little serious, guys." But yeah, obviously because they just didn't know what it was. So definitely, I think it's really, really, really important to talk about this and get the word out there because it can change your life.
Absolutely.
I'm seeing a comment here from someone saying, I can understand the immense impact from the death of a grandparent. My father's from southern India, and he passed away from an aortic aneurysm in which he had a stroke, and which he didn't wake up from 7 years. Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know losing a grandparent is just, it's one of the worst things. At least it's really, really terrible.
And I
mean, my grandma lived 7 seas away, but she was still one of the closest people in my life.
Yeah, such an
and yeah, she was just super duper important to me. And yeah, now my grandfather is living alone in the house, and my mom's without a mom, and it's just really, really hard and crazy and just super duper. It was life changing. You know, I think after that day, my life was never the same. I could never call her again, talk to her again, like look at her smiling face. And that's just something that's really been hard for me because she was just one of the biggest support systems I've had. So yeah, that is just my story in my relation to brain aneurysms. And yeah, so I think that just talking about this disease and spreading awareness and advocacy is now, I know I'm a little young to say this, but I think I found my life purpose.
Good.
Because
you did.
I have. Because I genuinely feel so connected to this cause. And speaking with other people who had the same experiences, speaking with Ms. Tawnie, advocating at the SF Marathon, it just taught me that, you know, there is so much value in putting this knowledge and information out there. And yeah, again, living in the USA, grandparents living in India, that's me. That's my life story.
So with it being a familiar thing, because I know when we were advocating, and I find a lot of people, they go, "Oh my gosh, my grandma had one." And then I usually ask and go, "Have you been checked?" And most people go, "Well, no, that was just her." So did you, with your doctors, with your grandma, did they say anything to you about that? Like, hey, you and your mom should get checked? Or was there any sort of, or did you find that out in your research? Or when did you find out that there can...
Trying to figure that out?
Yeah.
So the thing is, I don't think my mom, she was doing a lot of Googling over that week, obviously, but everything was just a blur. So, and the doctors, they didn't tell us about that, actually. So the thing is, but my mom, when she came back here, I think one of the first things she did after, you know, everybody had kind of somewhat returned to a sense of new normalcy, that my mom had gotten herself scanned for a brain aneurysm. And that was definitely, especially since a parent had one, it was definitely very imperative for her to do that. But yeah.
Oh no.
So yeah, that's one of the things she did. I think, I'm not sure if I'm a little too young to get checked or not, but I'm definitely, as soon as I turn 18, at least I'm going to check. But do you have any insights on that?
I would love to share that because my brother, we're still arguing with insurance. They're saying that he's too young. Now, luckily, to empower you, My neurologist out in Ohio actually ordered an MRA in February.
Oh yeah.
So he ordered that in February. My insurance denied me. My aneurysm ruptured in May. So he uses my case. He goes, if we would have scanned her in February, we would have found that before it ruptured. So he uses my case to argue all the time. So we're right now, because my brother he deals with migraines. He also has Tourette's, so he has neurodivergent. I'm like, we have different brains, so no one else in my family has those issues, but I just empower people to advocate and ask those questions, because I was shocked how many people will say, "Oh, I have migraines frequently." And I'm like, "Well, have you ever seen a neurologist?" And their response is
Yeah.
no. And I'm like, "I'm sure it's just migraines. It's probably you're not drinking enough water." Hate to break it to you, it's 99% of the time that.
Yeah,
But
water.
I'm like, but if it's something enough that you are asking a stranger, like, you should go see a doctor. Like, go ask a medical professional, go get yourself checked, and so you can feel better about it. You are probably too young, but it's just so wonderful that you're aware of it. Um,
Oh yeah, definitely.
just
I am
like the
definitely,
knowledge.
yeah, because especially my mom and I, my grandpa, my mom, my dad, me, we all suffer from migraines.
Yeah. And
Like
also women
literally.
of color
Mhm.
were more likely to be misdiagnosed,
Yeah.
so many different things that if you just know, it will empower you. And I tell people, I don't say these things to scare you. I say it to give you tools so that you can advocate for yourself. So you don't just take when they say, "Hey, you're fine, go home." And you're like, "No, no."
I know.
But they did with
And
me.
it's like, it's definitely not something that I'm always going to be thinking about the
No.
worst case scenario,
No.
but it is something to be kept at the back of your mind because, I mean, especially in my case, which I've been rambling on about for a long time, it can change your life, and it may for the worst.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's sometimes how it works. So yeah, I think definitely being aware of the signs of stroke, which is something Ms. Tawnie and I talked about at the SF Marathon, is I'm forgetting, but I think the CDC, I'm forgetting some government um, organization, is it the CDC or the FDA? They have a fast, a think fast or a fast acronym, which can help you recognize signs of stroke. I would highly recommend anyone and everyone watching to go and look that up and educate ourselves, and we can all educate ourselves on the acronym so we know and we can recognize when someone's having a stroke. Either type, anything, just anything to save a life, I think is really, really important because a loss of a life can just be devastating.
Yes, just to empower people to know what to look for. And like the thunderclap, headache, migraine, almost every single one of us, I said, I'm like, worst migraine of my life was the exact phrase I said. And I go, felt like a baseball bat to the back of my head. So
Yeah.
thunderclap,
Oh my
all
God.
those things, your balance, your eyes. I love that Taft did head scan. They made it because
Yeah.
a lot of people get missed for the neck stiffness, the dizziness. And so some of us do pass out. You can tell right away something is wrong. But for
Something's wrong.
me, it was like I had difficulty walking, but I just thought I'm in so much pain. But now I look back, I'm like, you've never been in that much pain that you're like tripping over yourself and not really able to walk. So
Mm-hmm.
those different
Yeah.
things. And I'm just,
There's. Mm-hmm.
it's just amazing.
No, yeah. I mean, it's really, really crazy what our bodies can try to signal us, and things that we may not listen to and we may brush it off. And honestly, my philosophy, I'm sometimes argue with my mom about this if she's having like, if she's in a little too much pain. I'm like, Mom, go to the hospital. Good. It's better to find out that you don't have something, or to find out that you have something and catch it early. Absolutely. Than to let anything go unnoticed. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can talk about. And yeah, there are definitely like risk factors, differences in your brain. I myself am actually neurodivergent. I have OCD and anxiety. So that's like, that's just something for, that's just, it just makes your brain a little bit different. It alters your brain chemistry,
It's our
And
superpower.
yeah, it is a superpower. It is a superpower, but yeah,
really
it's definitely
is.
just something to be aware of. So if you think you're having a stroke, or okay, my advice to anyone, I'm not a medical professional, but
we're not doctors. We're just sharing our own experiences.
We're not giving medical advice. But if you feel like there's something different that you've never felt before, just like think back to a time you had any pain. If it's more than that, I would say, or at least from my experience, I would definitely urge someone to just go to the doctor, call 911,
Yeah,
do anything that you can to save yourself, save someone else.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that is a
definitely.
perfect, I feel like does anybody have some questions now that we did share? If you wanted to ask some things or just, it's, I just have to applaud you because so many people, when you are faced with grief, it's easy to just shut down, but you took that time and that opportunity to educate yourself and to not only empower yourself, but others. And so I think that that's wonderful and the world needs more of that. So I'm so grateful for you. I'm sorry that, like, I say this, another survivor said, they go, it's a club we don't want everyone in, but, like, once
Yeah,
you're in, like, I'm so
you're
grateful I
in.
got to meet you, but, like, I'm so sorry we met under these circumstances. I
Yeah,
would much rather have you have your grandma and not have ever met me, but I'm so grateful that
yeah.
I know that she's so proud of you. Like, I'm just so
Well,
grateful that I get to meet you, and I know from watching the people who you talked to, though they were impacted. They thought about that, they took in that information, and so at the end of the day, like, if you can just help one person, that's all we want. So
honestly, yeah. Anything and anything and everything I can do to help this cause, I will do. I would actually like to share with you
oh
that
yes, please. Anything, how we can connect with you, what we can do, how we can support, what you're up
yeah, of
to.
course, anything. And I think one of the biggest things is that just anything. Yeah. So I think you were talking about how I kind of turned my grief into something actionable. I still have my grandma to thank for that. She always pushed me to think for myself, figure out what things are going wrong, especially my mom. I have her to thank for that as well. She's a science teacher, so it kind of runs in the family.
We love
Yeah,
science
and
women. Thank you.
yes. And yeah, definitely. The second type of stroke, the aneurysm stroke, it's not researched enough. And the Aneurysm and ABM Foundation talks about this. It's definitely doesn't have enough research, so they give out like research grants that I was um, looking at, and yeah, so just anything and anything that I could do, I will do. For example, I have a job. I work as a part-time martial arts instructor. I absolutely love the job. I've been doing martial arts since I was like 4, so it's
So
basically I've grown up with it.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
I
incredible.
have. Yeah, it's really, really fun. And especially teaching for me, I get to work with people of all age groups, from little kids all the way to adults who are
That's why you're so
learning
good
martial
at
arts.
talking to all different types of people too. Oh, I see all
Yeah.
these beautiful things that came together.
Yeah, and I am going to be donating 100% of my salary to the Aneurysm and ABM Foundation.
Incredible.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, there's no need to thank me, to be very honest. It's honestly my honor to do anything I can to preserve my grandma's legacy and to make sure that what happened with our family doesn't happen to anyone else. Whether it's a loss of someone or even if you survive, it's a traumatic event and it is something that other people need to know about. And I would also like to take a shout out to to the friends I have at my high school. Some of them are joining, and I would love to say thank you so much, guys, for coming and supporting me. It's my first live. I have never done this before, actually. It was
You
kind of nerve wracking. I was like
crushed
nervous about
it.
it all day.
Oh my gosh, you did so good. You were like answering things and then responding to the comments too. I was like, oh, she must do lives all the time. Like, that was incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, that's just my story. And I think, yeah, just sharing your story, kind of getting it out there. You never know who it might impact. And I'm really actually, when you said that I was able to impact those people, that really, really touched me. Because I think that's pretty much all I've ever wanted, to just make other people know that this condition is out there. It could strike at any time. Not to scare you guys or anything, but just to be aware, you know? And yeah,
Awareness is key.
and honestly, I think this condition, what happened to my grandmother, it's definitely not a positive thing, but it has helped me make some positive changes in my life. For example, I pay attention to my own body more. I kind of pay attention to what it's feeling, what it needs, if it's something a little bit too unusual, or for example, I was having migraines practically every day in the summer. So I told my parents and they took me to see a neurologist. Okay. If I had just like dismissed it, like, oh, it's just a regular headache, but it was just like a pretty bad headache actually. It couldn't be ignored. But that aside, just just kind of
empowered you
listening
to go.
To your body is important. Yeah. And I know us in like our workaholic culture, and especially with us high schoolers in the Bay Area, it's really, really crazy. But even in even in the workforce, we tend to prioritize work and just keep and just working and working and working. And although that is important, it can provide you fulfillment, but your body also needs a little bit of rest, and it's going to try to signal you and tell you when things are wrong. And I think that we all should just take a minute probably to rest our bodies and also to listen to them.
Thank you. That's such a beautiful and important message. We don't need to glamorize the over busy, overworked. Like that is not key. That's not like, it's so much better to listen to your body. And I'm so glad that you are empowered that way to go and get the support that you need. And it's really, really important. So thank you so much for just sharing that. And I can't wait to keep following along. We'll have to probably do an update with you so you can share even more things that you're up to, because
of course I would love that. Yeah, I've been trying to do as much as I can.
Right. I know my husband, he was like, let's go lay down. I go, I can't, I have a live. He was like, this late? I go, yes, I know. I'm like a little old lady that like 7's late for me now. So I'm glad we were able to connect, and please go and follow, make sure you see what she's up to. I know you guys have also your group. Is that linked on your Instagram?
Yes. It's not linked on my Instagram, but I can definitely put it in my bio. Yeah. We have, so I'm the co-founder and vice president of this group of very healthcare, medical field, passionate people, high schoolers, and we like to talk about different diseases, different conditions, just like basic anatomy, a bunch of stuff. We just try to get advocacy and health advocacy out there. Our group's organization is called HEAL, Healthcare Excellence Advocacy and Leadership, and it's a pretty long name. We call it HEAL for short. And we held a mini webinar where we had Ms. Tawnie come and speak about advocating for yourself as a patient. Because sometimes with the medical system and insurance, it's super hard to get an appointment, and just how to get your concerns addressed. Because now, as we all know, there are pretty dire consequences to your concerns and your body, its needs not being listened to. So yeah, feel free to give us a follow. I will definitely update my Instagram and put it in my bio.
And I'll put all the information in this live after too, so not to worry.
Yeah, of course. And I sent you the link to my research paper. I'm not sure it's a pretty technical thing, but I can definitely actually, if you'd like, I can just break it down real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
teach us. We love education, all of it, awareness.
Yeah, of course. So this it has a pretty long name. It's just called the Biological and Medical Mechanisms of Intracranial Brain Aneurysms and Biomarker Development. So basically, what this entire research thing that I did is about is that there are little molecules in your body, and they're called biomarkers. And the reason they're called biomarkers is just because they're markers in your body, so bio, and they can serve as some kind of like a numerical, almost like a number to indicate if you have a certain condition or not. Okay. And it's really, really cool, actually, how they can detect different diseases. I mean, like some diseases are associated with higher levels of this chemical or this molecule. And it can just be really, it was really cool to me to research that. You know, there are other ways other than getting a brain scan. Because I don't think you would go to your doctor for your regular, at least for us, we have kids who have annual physicals. I'm not sure if that works for adults, but I don't think you would go to your doctor in your annual physical and think, you know what, I'm going to get an MRI today. Yeah, no. Just for no reason, right? Although it's important. But these are just, I think, these are things that can be tested or detected in a little more accessible way, and things that you wouldn't normally think about. So in the paper that I wrote, I talked a little bit about why brain aneurysms form. They can be because of like genetic diseases. Then female sex is definitely a risk factor. High blood pressure. My grandma had high blood pressure all throughout her life. And if someone has a first degree relative, your parent essentially, which is why my mom got her MRI done. And, you know, stuff like that can just lead as risk factors. Brain aneurysms themselves, you can't really tell they're there until they burst, which is when we talked about all the symptoms before. And then I talked a little bit about what happens in the actual wall of our blood vessel, where we have these little special cells called endothelial cells that are going to line the blood vessel. And they kind of form a little cushion or protective lining, and they get degraded or destroyed. Oh. that could be one cause of. So then eventually, if the wall of your vessel is this big, then it's going to reduce to this because of how your cells are being degraded.
Okay.
And because of that, that's going to be weakened, and then more pressure is going to be on your blood vessel wall, and then brain aneurysm bursts. That's just one part of it. And then of course you have our little bio. And actually, I researched this, that a normal blood vessel, its like diameter is going to be like 0.05 millimeters to 0.12 millimeters. It's really, really thin. But if it has an aneurysm or endothelial damage, it can grow anywhere up to 31.5 millimeters. So from 0.12 to 31.5,
that's a big
change for your body to handle.
Yeah, and there's not much room up here in your brain. You like your skull keeps things pretty much confined. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, pretty confined, and it's pretty like intertwined and everything, so it can affect any and every part of your brain. And there are just all these different factors. Like there's this one thing called TNF alpha, tumor necrosis factor. That's just one thing, and then there are like 100, like a whole bunch of different genetic loci or different areas of your genes that can prove as like a risk factor or something that can say that, oh, you might be susceptible to an aneurysm. So if you get like a genetic test done, then if something shows up like that, then you can figure that out.
Yeah, because I can tell you, catching the second one before it popped, way different of a healing. I was only in the hospital one night, bing out, gone. So
honestly, yes, I hope anyone and everyone's recovery goes like that. Yeah. And one day, when we figure out good ways to do that. And there are definitely a bunch of different genes with really complicated names that I probably will not like to bore you with. And if there's like an overexpression, if there's like too much of a certain gene in your body, that can serve as like a red flag. And then there are different molecules, like there's IL-6, CRP. Then there are actually these really interesting, like, there was a cell, actually, that I'm forgetting. There's some kind of cell trap. I think there's some immune cells in your brain, or in your body, they're called neutrophils. You have extracellular traps that if there's a certain amount of them, or if you can kind of stop the amount of traps that are produced, if you can slow that down, it can actually reduce your rupture risk. Which I found really, really cool.
Yeah, we like anything that's going to reduce our rupture risk. Like, heck
definitely. Yeah. And just a bunch of like, I talked about the specialized cells, endothelial cells, any molecules associated with them. That if you can manage those levels, that could help. Again, this is on a very, very micro scale, and like I said, not enough research is being done on this. So the more research and the more info we get about this, the better. And that's just something I wanted to contribute to. And oxidative stress is like, it's an injury due to free radicals, or just like too much free radicals. It can cause injury to your blood vessels, and then of course weaken the blood vessel wall, and then kaboom. It's not a very fun kaboom. Yeah. But there's stuff like that. And there also, I found some my family, we're from India, and our roots we're rooted in like holistic medicine and Ayurveda, which is like kind of balancing out your body with different herbs. So definitely. And my grandma was a big believer in homeopathy as well. So I've grown up around like alternative treatments. So I was thinking of some just to give a little bit of background, when the doctor finds out you have an aneurysm before it's ruptured, great. They will usually do something, and they'll put a little clip or a coil around your aneurysm to kind of plug it and make sure that it doesn't burst. So that's usually what some people do. But me, just being my curious alternative medicine raised self, I was looking at some non-surgical treatments to reduce your rupture risk. Of course, surgery, if you have a brain aneurysm, please go get surgery, and please go get it treated. Because right now, these are the things that are in the works. They have not been fully confirmed yet, and this is definitely not medical advice. These are just the possibilities. Yes. And I found this one molecule that can be found in turmeric that can actually reduce your rupture risk. It's called curcumin. And it's really, really cool. Wow. Some people, there was a study conducted in which some patients with brain aneurysms were given this curcumin, this molecule found from turmeric, and their rupture risk significantly reduced. And I was like, oh my God, that's really, really crazy. And it's really, it's really cool that are out there are just amazing. And so my paper, I didn't do any hands-on research myself. I just went through existing like papers and studies that other scientists and amazing work that they had done. I just kind of compiled it together for my purpose and just crossed it over, kind of linked some stuff just to kind of provide a nice little overview. And I think that definitely I'm going to add one of my main advocacy like goals is to get more research and more science into this, guys. Yes. Because there's definitely not enough. We don't know enough about our bodies, and especially not about brain aneurysms, because some people have had.
As he told me, he was like, it's just most, and he said that 50% mortality rate is like, and most of you don't survive, so there's not enough. I'm like, okay.
most people don't survive 2 days after it bursts.
Yeah.
So it's really, really crazy. So there's just so much that we don't know about our bodies yet. And I think that continuing to explore that is just something that I'd be really interested in. And I'd encourage anybody who's interested in science to explore, yes. What's going on? What can we do? How can we save so many lives, actually? And yeah, that's basically just my research. I also talked about a little bit of like some vitamins and stuff, and some things that you lack in your body. So I think that the way that I did this research I think like 3 months after she passed away. So I was definitely in a different, So I was just working in the summer when I went back to India. And it was just, I think this whole event, this incident, as my mom and I like to call it, this incident just really spurred me to kind of figure out how we can kind of reduce this risk of it bursting, find different ways for people to find out before it ruptures, and then, of course, go on to treat these brain aneurysms. And honestly, any rare disease, if you advocate for yourself, I feel like all diseases and all rare diseases should be out there, because I think the Aneurysm and AVM Foundation has this really great slogan: it's not rare until it happens to you. 100%. And that is something that I found was like, oh my God, because before this, I didn't know what a brain aneurysm even was. Yeah. Honestly.
Neither did I.
I didn't know what an aneurysm. Yeah, I had never even heard of it. I mean, what is that? Like, what's an aneurysm?
Yeah. Like people say it all the time. Like, I'm gonna have an aneurysm, and I'm like, okay, don't say that.
Don't say that. It's not. Yeah, definitely not. And I can see some 100% over there. I agree. So definitely, I think the possibilities are endless, and I think that's something that's really exciting. I have a very love-hate relationship with this disease. I definitely hate it because of it took away the person I love the most. But I also love learning about it, and I love the fact that there's so much research already being done, and there's so much more that we can do to kind of help,
other people, yeah.
Yeah, to help other people.
And I just love, well, because I know you just have such a big heart. I feel like a lot of us who advocate, it's just like once you get through that darkness, you're just like, I just don't want someone else to have it as hard as I did. I want just, if you have a little bit of light, a little bit of hope, then it will be better for you. I can't stop it from happening to you, but I can at least give you some tools and some resources. And like, that's what TAF, that's how we met each other. TAF is the awareness. The aneurysm and awareness. Oh my God, the brain aneurysm and AVM Foundation. Good Lord. Yeah. You can tell once it gets later, all the A's get all mixed up in my brain. But it's just wonderful to have those kind of resources. So you guys that is out there, please get in touch, get in the DMs, anything if this resonated with you. If you are a caretaker, if you are a family member, that's what's beautiful about TAF. You guys deserve support, almost even sometimes more, because you got to support us and support yourself and all of this. So if we can help you with anything, and just thank you for taking the time today. I know it had to be very extra emotional to talk about this. So I really appreciate that you gave education, light, awareness, and just so much to honor your grandma. And it was
like I said, it's my honor, and honestly, I am more than happy to do anything and everything I can, and I would like to thank Miss Tawnie, actually, for including me in one of her lives. I mean, it's such a big thing. I love her advocacy work. I don't know. I feel like whenever I see Miss Tawnie's Instagram posts, they always light up my day, because it's just, even if it's not aneurysm related, it's such a positive mindset, and I think we all kind of need that in our lives, and all that hope and everything, despite going through multiple rounds of trauma.
That means a
And
lot. I
yeah,
try. It's not easy. It's work. I tell people, I'm like, you can go back and you can see in my content, my headspace. You can watch the work and see how I keep retraining my brain to be nicer because the world is so mean to us and we beat ourselves up enough. Got to be kinder.
yeah. Got to be kinder to our bodies, listen to them really well, just kind of really be in tune with ourselves. I think that that's something I've been working on personally. Like, I've just been trying to, like, meditate a little bit more. That's just one thing that I find helps me.
That's why I've
But
been
yeah,
getting
I
into
mean,
grounding.
really
I
enjoy
go,
it.
if it's just a couple minutes to unplug and just tap into myself because I realize sometimes
Yeah,
I'm so busy doing that I'm like, when is the last time I just like sat here and like listened to my body?
yeah, definitely. Big thing. Yeah, and it's super hard with all the pressure that's going around, but I just wanted to put it out there. Stress can also cause brain aneurysms. It's a really, really, really big factor. If you have a really stressful lifestyle, I don't want to go into the personal details of it because that's a little bit personal, but my grandma did have a stressful life. So, stress can definitely cause brain aneurysms, and I think it's important to just take a step back,
That's why
breathe
I've
a little.
slowed down. I had 3 jobs. I don't think that that's yeah, when mine
Wow.
ruptured. Yeah.
Okay, this
So we
time.
wonder why. Yeah, we tied a lot of our lot to productivity. So we have learned to slow down and to just share. Oh, there's a little question. I want to be an advocate. How do I find place to talk about my advocacy in the state of Atlanta, Georgia? That is amazing. Please contact TAF. I know I keep saying TAF up the wazoo. I know there's tons of different support groups, okay? It's like dating. Go find ones you like. The reason I want to share why I love TAF is it's very individualized, and what I love is that it's filled with caretakers and other survivors. So we, in fact, this Friday, Vinny, who is a fellow survivor, he's doing a whole education on internet privacy and all these amazing things, and it's hosted by someone who has had an AVM. So for me, it's so helpful having people around who have walked similar paths because they can give me tips and resources. So TAF also has 20, Dina for 20 years has been
Oh my
amazing,
God,
advocating, listening to
so
all of
amazing.
us, gathering all this information. And I can tell you, it was so nice because she knew my neurosurgeon. And then out here in California, when I had to get my CT scan, she was able to help give me advice on how to get a second opinion. And then I got, was it a second opinion or a third opinion technically? Yeah. And then that's when I got my CT scan instead of getting an angiogram. So just having people who can advocate with you, help you, and also give you spaces like that. So please contact me or TAF. Either way, I can help direct you there. Thank you for saying it was a great live. We appreciate you. I know, sorry we went so long. It was just too many goodness. So we will definitely do a follow-up probably in a couple months to just catch up with you and hear what you're doing
Right.
advocating because you're just
I would
incredible.
love that.
So
Oh, thank you so much. I think you're incredible, Miss Tawnie.
thank you. I appreciate this. A great way to end the night. Thank you guys. And all the information will be up in this when we're done being live. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you.
And I also just put the name of the Aneurysm AVM Foundation down there.
Thank
Just
you.
as a little
And,
reference.
and they're tagged
It's a
on
wonderful
mine. Like
organization.
in my bio, if you go, it says awareness ambassador with TAF because I just want more people to feel the support and the resources. Like I wish I found them sooner. And I feel like that's what all of us survivors say. We're like, man, why weren't you like, I wish I would have just found you right off the bat.
I know.
So thank you guys. Have a great night. We'll see you later. Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much, Miss Tawnie. Bye.
Sorry, I don't know why the comments were disabled over here. I just realized I kept pressing the click here. So I will go back through the live probably tomorrow and answer those questions. And then that's when we will do a follow up with her so that you guys can get any of those things. Thank you so much for being on for this live.